Are high schools in the USA anything like in the movies? What do they get right wrong? Superb. It was closer to my experience than probably any other high school movie. My friends and I spent most of our time trying to be cool and extremely failing. Not popular but just kinda getting along with most people and somehow still having a lot of fun. Working in a high school in NJ. Many students do have nicer cars than the employees. Also some stoners happen to be really good athletes. Just the way the cookie crumbles. Cliques generally get along with each other pretty well, and some are even good friends. It's pretty uncommon for someone to look like they're in their late 20s. One thing they absolutely do get right though is the craze with sports. My school cared more about sports than anything. At various times in high school I fit the stereotype of a nerd, theater kid, jock, and popular kid all at various times. Having spent time in the various cliques, I'd say that there's a lot more crossover than media portrays, at least in my case. Not even a lot of bullying between cliques. If you didn't like someone you just didn't hang out with them. That said, intra-clique drama was common. And yes, my school cared way too much about football. Too many people learned my name when I got on the football team. For the most part, the cliques aren't nearly as cliquish. It's most like a bunch of friends who hang out with each other, rather than the armed camps often portrayed in movies and shows. While there's plenty of drama going on in a high school, it rarely involves strangers. There's a lot less division of class. Like, the nerds aren't so drastically separate from the jocks. All of those types of kids, the jocks, nerds, preps, MS, druggies, whatever all intermingled and got along fairly well. Some people had enemies and fights broke out, but there were no active rivalries. Lots of the stereotypes in the movie have reasons that they exist, of course, but they're a lot less pronounced in actual schools. With larger high schools, 500 plus students grade, there isn't really the social hierarchy presented in most films. There's just too many kids for everyone to know each other like that. There aren't the cool kids and the losers. There's just different groups. The football players, the anime nerds, the class government kids, etc. There's no pecking order or anything. Most people just sort of keep to their groups. At my high school prom, the prom king, an athlete and class clown, and queen, class vice president and prom organizer, had literally never met before and had only a vague inkling of who the other was. Edit. While I've been attributing this to class size, a lot of commenters are saying they had the same experience with much smaller classes, so it might just be Hollywood making stuff up, or maybe things have changed since our parents' generation. High school students in movies are like college students in real life. High school students in real life are like middle school students in movies with the addition of weed and alcohol depending on what crowd you're in. The best depiction of a modern high schooler's emo is honestly super bad. My name is Brad, and not once in my 21 years of living have I met another Brad despite how popular it is as a name in high school movies. I was about to comment about this. Then I realized you are exactly right. I don't know of a single Brad in real life. Are you sure you actually exist? Probably want to double check that. Depends where you live. If you're in a rich part of Houston, those crazy pool parties are a laugh. People all over drinks, music, drugs, etc. All of it. On the other hand, if you're in Essie, Kentucky, you meet by a creek or on a big hill, have a bonfire, shooting guns, drinking, fake pool in the pickup truck, whole shebang. Lots of red Solo cups everywhere. Edit. Had I read this as a high school parties in the USA like the movies, my bad. Graduated in 2016, North Texas, and all the cliques were stoners, jocks, band, nerds, duck boys, all smoked lots of weed, and all got along. Most fights happened within social groups emo. I can't speak for all schools, but at my school things that are different from movies, the popular kids were all relatively nice. You didn't become popular by making fun of the nerds or whatever other stereotype gets picked on in movies. The football players and cheerleaders were by and large not dumb jocks or complete ditzy airheads. They weren't necessarily all top honors student material, but the majority of them did fairly well. We had almost no lockers. You had to pay if you wanted one, and they were tiny, not something you can get pushed inside and locked up in. Cliques weren't really a thing. You hung out with people you enjoyed hanging out with regardless of interests. Some things that were somewhat accurate. Prom and homecoming was a really big deal to a lot of people. Girls in particular would make plans for this month in advance. Sports were likewise a big deal, especially football. You generally did have to be attractive to be really popular. Playing on the football team helped as well. Lots of silly relationship drama, though maybe not quite as much as is shown in movies. Red Solo cups actually are a thing, but I've never seen anyone shoved into a locker by someone wearing a Letterman jacket. Did anybody really wear those? I was issued a letter for baseball, but never bothered buying the jacket. I don't remember any of the other athletes wearing one either. The sun has not yet risen when you arrive. For some reason TV and movies always show classes starting at like noon. My HS had an ungodly start time. The bus was scheduled to pick us up at like 5 AM. Mine was nothing like the movies. We didn't have huge parties, like they do in the movies. That didn't start happening until college. The girls in my high school were pretty, but they didn't look like the halfway point between pronoun stars and supermodels. We didn't have any bullies. We had a handful of bad kids, but nobody took them seriously. They kept to themselves. We didn't have any super popular boys or girls, no prom king or prom. There were a handful of cliques, obviously, but again, they kept to themselves. We didn't have any junkie drug dealers. Never once in my HS career did I get arranged by a dude in a trench coat who was trying to give me free drugs. My high school experience was nothing like a movie. I was friends with football players, nerds, upperclassmen, whatever. I was a skater, varsity soccer player, lunchtime Magic the Gathering player. So maybe my experience was unique because I was floating around so many different groups. It all depends on what state you went to high school. For example, I went to a school in Los Angeles. We had kickbacks, smoked tons of pot, and did shots from some hot chick's little brother in 7th grade who stole their mother's cheap 711 vodka bottle to come seem cool with us. I believe most movies, based on high school culture, are formed around what it was like growing up in Los Angeles, especially the San Fernando Valley. A lot of it is exaggerated. Parties don't happen nearly as often. Around 60-70% of the kids make on a roll. The teachers are typically not absolute dickheads to their students. Expectations are occasionally incredibly ridiculous though, and there is usually way more substance abuse than what's typically portrayed, especially marijuana, at least where I go anyway, and the whole year doesn't revolve around getting a frigging prom date. I think TV and movies would give you impression that a lot more high schools have outdoor lockers than really do. For me personally, the teachers never gave out the assignments after the bell rang. There was always a little 5-minute warning sound before the bell, I think for the gym classes, so people got changed in time. It's been 15 years since I was in high school. But the movies are nothing like reality. They've got all the cliques right, but the drama, personalities, and situations are all overly exaggerated. Also, schools in the movies seem to be a bit more lenient and student driven than they really are. As a kid, I always saw people getting 10-page book reports in 3rd grade. My longest paper was my 12th grade English final, which was only 8 pages. Here's what many of the movies get wrong about American HS. While there are a few people who look like they're in their 20s, many aren't. Not enough acne. Pecking order is highly variable between schools and even across grade levels. My HS had a hierarchy, kind of, in 9th grade, but it quickly disappeared in 11th and 12th grade. Teachers are rarely extremely great but or dull exciting. I've had many decent, but middle of the road, mediocre, etc. teachers. People involved with sports are not dumb. Many are top of the class. What is up with TV show lockers? Everyone walks up, pulls up on a latch, and then the locker opens. By what definition is that even a locker, since it doesn't lock? Are lockers, or lockers, really like that in the US? Edit. Guys, I'm learning so much about American lockers. Also, I have learned that you guys mostly live in warm climates. Since a lot of you don't see a need for a locker, where would you keep your coat and boots and whatnot? We never gathered outside in the grass before the bell rang. off the bus and straight through the doors, and you only have maybe 15 minutes to, and for most of the year it's pretty dark in the morning. And I might have just been a loser who wasn't invited, but I don't think anyone had their parents go out of town and invited 50 plus people over to drink and have sex on their parents' bed. High school parties are more like 8 to 10 kids in your living room eating chips and watching Beowulf. In my experience. Lol, my friend invited me over for his birthday and my mom warned me about drugs, but it was literally 8 of us running around and shooting each other with a Nerf gun, then we sat down to play Joking Hazard. The cliques are bullshit. They are more social circles than anything, and the groups often intermingled and partied together. There actually are huge parties. The jocks were usually pretty friendly, not a lot of bullying. Cheerleaders were actually really friendly. There are drugs and shady characters that dispense them. Can't speak for all schools but mine. Bullying wasn't random tough guys picking on skinny nerds. Bullying was something that happened more within groups of friends, with the toughest act in picking on the weakest or the person who defended themselves least. I hung out with a lot of different groups and saw it in almost every group. Bullies, for the most part, we are friends with the guys they picked on. I think it's more that they are insecure and that's their way of making friends, because they were afraid of conversation or opening up. Rarely, if ever, did I see a bully picking on someone they completely hated or didn't socialize with at some point. Something that always bothered me about movies was how the kids would spend so much time at their lockers between classes. The only locker I ever had was a gym locker and I only ever used it to change out. We didn't all goof off or chat an hour underwear either. We had like 5 minutes to get changed and we weren't given much more than that to get back to our lockers to change back before the bell that ended the class rang. Also, the only really popular kids weren't mean. They were genuinely nice kids who got good grades, contributed to the community, and didn't like to exclude people for being different. We definitely had bullies and assholes, but they were not the people everyone wanted to hang out with. The popular kids are actually really nice, get good grades, do sports and have a good relationship with their parents. There's a reason they're popular. It feels like everything that was considered geeky has merged into the realm of popularity, and it's now cool to like those things. But only if you're athletic, smart, and good at the thing you do. If you're just okay. If you like a wide variety of things with middling commitment to any of them, you are invisible. My high school was close to 100 years old. It was super small and could barely hold the amount of kids who went there. It was super basic as well. This was like 10 years ago. Apparently they finally finished building a new high school in the town I grew up in, and it is a lot more modern. But in movies in a high school setting, those places always seemed like small colleges to me. Huge campus, an actual parking lot for students. We had to park in the neighborhoods near our school and hope we weren't late, etc. Cliques were pretty much spot on though from what I saw firsthand and was a part of. The hype around school sports, football, is real. Nobody cares much about the other sports, except maybe cheerleading. Those homecoming months and the hype that surrounds the whole event is real. The whole celebration usually takes about a week, ramping up at the end with mega hype for the game, and then the dance. The hype about prom is real. Pep rallies? Yes, that's how they go. Solo cups are not only cliché, but definitely a part of every party. They have finally come out with other colors, but red is still the most common. Yes, some high schoolers are spoiled AF and get cars for their birthday, both used and brand new top dollar. The rest of us had to buy our own car, hope to have a friend with a car, or ride the bus. The rivalry between cliques is over exaggerated. Most people just want peace and acceptance. Aside from the jerk here and there, most people let bygones be bygones. The rivalry between certain schools, but not all, is real. This is related to sports and who was thought to be more spoiled. I don't remember the student body student government having nearly as much say in the school's day to day. Pretty much everything is planned out before the beginning of the year. Though all the hype you see is real, there are plenty of us that didn't engage in any of the typical high school experience and skipped prom, homecoming, every game, and pep rallies. had a teacher that would give students an alternative to attending the rally, an optional study hall, and after a couple she was told she wasn't allowed to accommodate that, and that we must attend the rally, which I straight up skipped and left school early. We didn't all get into the school spirit. People like myself couldn't wait for it to all be over. The school pride was kinda over the top and gross. I've been out of high school for almost 20 years, so this may not be accurate now, but certainly was in the 90s. Nobody cares. Nobody except your close friends care about your achievements, who you slept with, or you making the team or getting cut, or even that embarrassing thing you did. Everybody has their own lives and there just isn't enough time to worry about everybody else.